A young man discovers a mysterious mobile phone that provides him with limitless supernatural power. He was weak and bullied, but after a bullet pushed pieces of a smartphone into his brain, he became a god who controls the digital world. Watch how he takes his revenge. Our film begins in a residential complex, specifically in the house of grandmother Harvey and her grandson Tom, who was staying up late playing as usual and hears a woman scream. A woman is calling for help, but he ignores the sound completely because he is used to these sounds in their complex, and because he is weak and has no business in fights, he decides to step aside and stay silent. The next morning, we see Tom going to his high school, and on the way he meets his only friend Danny, who gives him a used phone for a small amount because Tom's situation isn't the best, and this is the case for the whole area. They arrive at school afterwards, and during the lesson, Tom is focused on his classmate Lucy and doesn't hear what the teacher is saying in class. The teacher notices he is distracted and asks him what he was saying, and he answers with something completely different, and the whole class laughs at him. Tom loves Lucy, but he is too weak to admit it to her and is shy of his own imagination in such talk. His friend Danny tells him that everyone knows he loves Lucy, so he must hurry and confess to her before someone else steals her from him. Danny leaves him because Lucy approached. When Lucy asks him what he was daydreaming about, he responds with completely uncoordinated words. She asks him to go out together, but he refuses because he is shy, but she doesn't give up and tells him to meet her at her house at 8 o'clock today, under the pretext that she wants him to study a subject with her. Of course, she won't be able to leave her brother and go out, and she warns him to come and that she will wait for him. He says okay to her. As he is leaving, Eugene's gang bothers him and bullies him, but he ignores them completely. At night, he was sitting watching TV, and his grandmother behind him was writing novels as usual. He asks his grandmother, "If someone told you they would wait for you at night, would you go?" She says of course, knowing he is talking about Lucy, but he doesn't move. Because of that, she teases him and tells him, "Since you're sitting here, listen to my latest novels," and starts telling him the story. He gets annoyed and gets up to go out, and she meant that of course to get him to move and go to Lucy. Indeed, he goes to her, and they are on the same floor but a bit far from each other. When he reaches the house, he is surprised because the door is open. He enters and finds Ben, Lucy's brother, beaten and unconscious. Before he can move, he finds 4 people coming out of Lucy's room. They were masked, and he knew they had assaulted her. They had a weapon, so he ran away from them and tried to call the police, but they caught up to him and shot him in the head, then left when they were sure he was dead. However, the bullet did not enter the skull because the phone at that time was on his ear. This allowed the doctors to save him. When he woke up, his grandmother was next to him, and he learned he had been in a coma for 10 days. She was happy he finally woke up because his chances of survival were almost impossible. But what he learned later from the doctor who performed the surgery is that the phone unfortunately exploded next to his head, and this caused pieces of it to settle inside his brain. It was almost impossible for them to take them out of his head, or he would die. But the good news is that he can live with them normally. We see Tom in the taxi with the grandmother, and for a moment he is not happy. She tried to ease his mind, especially when she saw the driver looking at him in a bad way, so she gave him a piece of her mind, of course. But suddenly Tom sees the hour, and strange codes and numbers come out of it. He cannot bear it and faints. When he wakes up, he finds himself in his room with his grandmother next to him, asking if he still feels unwell. He says no, and asks her how his head looks. She says not bad, but the sides will need to be leveled, taking the matter jokingly so he doesn't get upset. At lunch, he asks her about Lucy, and she informs him that she has improved and was discharged a few days before him. She asks him to rest a bit at home, and preferably not look for those who did this to him because she doesn't want to lose him. But Tom goes down to the street to buy a few things. However, he hears all sounds in a strange way, and hears people who have phones and sees the codes again. He runs to the residence, but he meets Eugene in the elevator, who of course bothers him as usual, and Tom ignores him as well. Afterwards, he goes up to Lucy's house and sees her brother sitting on the same sofa, but he finds a call from Eugene. The strange thing is that he sees it from his place while being far from the phone. Out of fear of what is happening, he enters Lucy's room and asks her how she is doing. She says she is fine, but he tells her she is not fine, and those who did this will be known, and he won't let them escape. He apologizes to her for running away, but she tells him he couldn't have done anything with them, especially since they were armed, and she is happy he is still alive and wants him to forget what happened. Tom returns from her place and sees the codes again. His grandmother asks him what's wrong because he is holding his head and is in pain, but he reassures her he is fine and there's no need for the doctor to know what happened. He enters his room and keeps seeing codes everywhere. He opens the curtain to look at the city and finds codes coming out of every place as well, so he faints for the second time. When he wakes up in the morning, he doesn't understand what is happening to him, but he is sure he now has a supernatural power, which is that he can hack any electronic device, control it, and monitor its owner. He decides afterwards to go down to school because there is an exam, but his grandmother says not to because the teachers know his condition. However, he refuses and informs her it's an exam and won't kill him. On the way, he meets his friend Danny, who asks him how he is. He informs him he is fine, but wants to know the gang that did this to him. But Danny advises him to forget what happened because there is danger for him in that. Afterwards, they take the bus to school. Danny was asking Tom if he would attend the party tonight, but he wasn't with him at all because he was seeing codes, pictures, and videos in front of him. When he finally senses Danny, he tells him he will think about it. Danny gets off halfway because he has work. As for Tom, he arrives at school, and everyone was looking at him with surprise while he tries to remain calm. When he is in science class, he sees the same codes again, and the matter has become normal for him. However, he sees on Eugene's phone a video of the assault on Lucy, so he realizes that he and his gang are behind what happened. From his anger, he couldn't control himself, and the phone exploded in Eugene's hand. Eugene doesn't know how this happened, and neither does Tom, but he is sure that his supernatural power is increasing day by day. At night, he goes to the party and stays alone, but when he sees Eugene, he is annoyed and angry. He kept looking at him and his gang, and he was able to determine they were with him because he saw the shoes of one of them, the bracelet of a second person, and the tattoo of a third. What's upsetting is that they are all classmates and are considered still children in high school. The point is that this increases Tom's anger, who gets up to fight with them. He stands looking at Eugene in a way as if he wants to kill him. Of course, Eugene won't stay silent at this look and was about to hit him, but Danny calmed him down and took his friend outside and got angry with him because he would fight with Eugene while knowing he couldn't handle him, and in the end, he would be the one getting hurt. But Tom tells him that he is afraid for his work with them, and he is not stupid and knows he is smuggling drugs for Eugene's gang. Danny tells him, "So what? We will all end up like this, and besides, I don't want to be a small worker. I intend to be the big head." He warns him against making trouble with Eugene because he won't be there every time to save him. Tom returns to the house of Lucy, who sent him a message to meet her. They went up to talk together for a bit. She asked him about the party, and of course he didn't tell her what happened and said it was boring and nothing happened. He asks her to try to return to school because he feels bored without her. Lucy sees Eugene's gang below the residence and gets upset. Tom asks her if she is okay, and she says yes, but he senses from her looks that she knows those who assaulted her. Because of that, the next day he follows Danny and Eugene and sees them meeting a person named Katz. However, Katz is not comfortable with Danny and orders him to stay away from his car and stand far away until he finishes his agreement with Eugene, who reassures him regarding Danny and tells him he is with them and not to worry about him. But Katz tells him that their work has no word of safety and that betrayal is the foundation. They finish their agreement, and of course Tom doesn't know what happened between them, but he was about to discover it. So he controls their phones with his mind and sends an anonymous message saying there is someone behind them. They are surprised when they find Katz sitting normally. At that time, Tom was able to escape before they saw him. As for Tom, he has taken the matter as entertainment, sending messages and seeing people's secrets. He started getting used to what was happening and even enjoying it. As for Lucy, she tried for the first time to go down to the street, but she was terrified, so she went back again quickly. We see Tom in his room, but he is focused on the wall. When his grandmother asks him, "Are you okay?" he says yes, but she is surprised by his focus on the wall. She doesn't know that he sees Eugene and his gang, and what each one of them is doing in his room. He started recording an embarrassing video of Katz doing something in front of the camera. As for the others, he played with their lights, sometimes turning them off and sometimes turning them on while they were terrified of what was happening. He was already spiteful towards them and happy with what he did. He didn't stop at that, because the next day at school, their entire grade was in a large hall. The principal was talking to them about the future and was supposed to show videos, but everyone kept laughing when Katz's video appeared on the screen. Katz was embarrassed by what was happening and that the whole school saw what he was doing. The principal tried to turn off the device but didn't know how. Tom then goes to Lucy's house and tells her what happened, and they keep laughing together. He advises her to return now, but she refuses. Afterwards, she receives a message from an anonymous person saying he is watching her and wants to get her rights back. She keeps communicating with him, not knowing that it's Tom messaging her. She was responding to all his messages and not focusing with Tom, who was asking her completely different questions, so she wouldn't know him. She continues responding to him and is sure from his messages that he is indeed watching her, but she wasn't afraid. Finally, Tom asks her to have dinner together and she agrees, but she doesn't go out with him to a restaurant as he thought. Instead, they settle for sitting by the duck pond, eating fries and talking about their lives. She thanks Tom because he is the only person who visited her after what happened and asks him if he can come with her to the next exam. He says of course and tells her he would never run away and leave her again and wants her to feel safe as long as she is with him. She is happy with his words. At the end of the day, they return together to the residence, but they meet Eugene and his gang, who stop Lucy. She says no, of course, while she is afraid, because she is sure they are behind what happened, but she can't speak. When Tom finds her afraid, he hides her behind his back and warns Eugene against approaching her. They think he is the anonymous person sending them messages saying he knows what they did. But before they can hit him, he sends them a message that they are talking to the wrong person. They get angry and look around to know where he is watching them from. Lucy returns home afraid and thanks Tom for his time, but she wants to be alone. Tom gets upset and follows them. He sees the four of them trying to steal a car. Katz is able to open its door, but Eugene decides to take the wheel and tries to start the car, but they are surprised that its doors have locked on them. They tried to open them but couldn't. But the horror continued when they found the radio turning on by itself with a person's voice that was very rough, asking them why they attacked Lucy and her brother. They didn't respond and tried to open the car door by any means until Tom set the car on fire while the doors remained locked on them. All Tom asks for on the radio is the name of the person who incited them to do that. Katz couldn't bear dying this way and told him the name Katz. After that, the car opened on its own, they escaped from it, and the car exploded as soon as they got out. Tom went up to the roof of the building and started looking for Katz. He was able to determine the location of his apartment in the middle of the city and went there. At that time, Katz was with his large gang, and a video was being shown in front of them of his car and someone opening it very easily and dirtying it. They leave what they are doing and run outside to see who dared to do this with Katz. At that time, Tom seized the opportunity, entered the apartment and started breaking things in it, and made all the devices explode. He was happy with what he was doing, but he found Katz's drug shipment and decided to take it to his house. He returned, of course, to Lucy to sit with her, and she told him she had made her decision and would go to the exam and wants him to go with her. He says, of course. Afterwards, we see him making a website named iBoy and posting all of Eugene's scandals on it. When he returns home, he starts dividing the shipment in his way and distributed it at night to the houses of Eugene and his colleagues. He also emptied Katz's account of the money in it. Katz was going crazy, wondering how this happened. The next day, the police were picking them up because he reported them, of course. All of this was filmed, and he felt a great victory. But his grandmother was afraid for him and asked him not to get involved with anyone else because she noticed his big change. Tom continues his work and monitors Katz, who spoke to a person named Ullman and informed him that the boys were all caught but he will handle it. But Ullman was angry and wanted to know who was behind what happened. Tom started looking for the name Ullman and was able to reach his picture. As for Katz, he gathered the whole gang and told them, I don't want you to leave a house without attacking it and taking all its devices. I want to know who is doing this and who is iBoy who emptied my account and handed them over. They attack all the houses and take the devices. But he stopped Katz and asked him, if someone threatened you to say my name, would you say it? He says, no, of course. He asks him, well, if you were trapped in a burning car and were going to die, would you say it then? He says, no, of course, while he is terrified because this means Katz found out. But he didn't take any action and left him for now. At that time, Tom was in his exam and following the comments on his website iBoy, seeing everyone thanking him and saying he is a hero, and he is happy. He returns home and finds the police there because the grandmother reported those who stole their devices. Tom was surprised that his room was also stolen, and all the devices in it. He knows Katz is behind it. He goes up to the roof once more and tries to know where Ullman is. Finally, he finds a place where he is located. However, his grandmother didn't like his behavior at all, and his going out at night every day. Because of that, when he didn't listen to her, she went to Danny and asked him to watch Tom for her because he has changed lately, and she is afraid something will happen to him, as she is sure he is looking into the gang that assaulted Lucy. He promised her he would watch him. As for Tom, he reached a warehouse where Ullman and Katz's goods are. While entering, he learns a few quick self-defense moves and is able to injure one in the leg after his medical report shows he has an injury there. Afterwards, he sets the goods on fire, but before he leaves, someone hits him on the head, and they gathered around him and were about to discover him. But he was able to emit a very loud sound that made everyone unable to stand from the pain in their heads. At that time, he escaped quickly but went to a far place and fainted. When he woke up, daylight had come, and Lucy had called him many times, but he didn't come as he promised her. When he sees her, he tries to apologize to her, but she tells him he broke his promise and she feels he has changed. But everyone is shocked when they see Katz's body hanging in the school, because he is the one who said Katz's name. Danny sat with his friend and tried to advise him to stay away from what he is doing, because he doesn't belong to this world, and told him he doesn't want to see him one day in Katz's place. He asks him who killed Katz, and he says, I don't know, but definitely someone close to them. Tom then goes to the treating doctor and informs him he is annoyed by the phone in his head and asks him to remove it. He asks him if it hurts him, and he says no, but he feels he no longer knows himself. The doctor tells him he needs another doctor to talk to, and that he came to the wrong person, meaning to see a psychiatrist in short. Tom returns home and is surprised that Allman and his gang are in his house, and the grandmother is with them too. Allman introduced himself and offered to work together, but Tom refused. He said he liked to make things easy for him and says, "Do you know how I found out you are the one behind what's happening?" He says, "Do you know how I discovered you and that you are the one behind what's happening?" He calls Danny and learns that his friend sold him out for the money he had refused. He forces Danny to eat money in front of him to confirm to him that he will sell him out every time. Danny leaves and takes his phone so Tom can transfer money to him, but he refuses. So he makes him see Lucy, whom he kidnapped, and says, "If you are afraid for her, transfer the money." Tom sees her through the phone that the gang fixed in front of him. Tom starts transferring the money slowly. Allman asks him if there is a problem, and he says if he withdraws the money all at once, the system will notice and thus they will be exposed. But Tom at that time was focused on Lucy and called emergency from the phone in front of her, but the gang was about to finish him off. However, the arrival of the police made them all hide inside and take her with them. At that time, Allman saw that Tom was not focused with him, so he asks Katz to call the warehouse, and no one answers so the police don't discover their location. Allman finds out and takes Tom with him, and they move to the warehouse where the police had unfortunately left because they found nothing. But Lucy had taken a weapon and threatened the four with death and said she was shocked by them because they grew up together and the end of their path was that they assaulted her and also want to kill her. They begged her not to kill them, so she told them to get on their knees and went out. But she was shocked when she found Allman with Tom and a weapon to his head. Of course, they take the weapon and hit Tom, and Allman threatens to kill her if he doesn't complete the money transfer. But Tom tells her, "If I told you to run, would you do that?" She was surprised by his words, but she felt the phone heating up in her hand, so she threw it quickly, and afterwards, it exploded. He then controlled Lucy and made her kill Eugene and the others. As for Allman, he escaped, but Tom went out after him. Allman hit him on the head from behind and told him he turned out not to be easy, and he underestimated him. He kept hitting him until Lucy came out and fired at him, but she didn't hit him and the bullets ran out. He went and hit her, but he is surprised by Tom getting up and screaming with all his might, a scream that finished Allman. Afterwards, he fainted, and they found him in the hospital with his grandmother next to him, who is happy at his return to her again. A few days pass, and Tom goes out and meets Danny, who apologizes to him for what he did but informed him he was forced. But Tom informed him he suspects he is the one who was filming the video of Lucy because the filmer is unknown until now. Danny says he is happy he returned, and also that Allman and Katz died because they destroyed many young people. Afterwards, he goes to meet Lucy, who had prepared lunch for him on the roof as their first official meeting. He has already confessed his love to her, and Tom makes him transfer large amounts to his account. And here our film ends.